graph then. Okay. So in this graph, I have told you that when integration begins, then most of the defects starts happening, and because of which uh, the original date of delivering the product can get delayed, or sometimes it happens that it remains incomplete. So this particular portion takes more than 40% of the resources of the complete life cycle. Your requirement portion takes 5% of the resources, coding and that part takes 10 to 30% of the resources, designing and coding, and integration takes more than 40% of the resources, and deployment, your delivering of the product takes 5% of the resources. That we have discussed in last class. Now, that was the first point that you have to remember when we are talking about waterfall in practice. In practice, we have to first mention the delayed integration that can happen when we are in practice utilizing waterfall model for development of software project. Next one you have to remember is late risk resolution. So this particular graph that you are watching over here in this slide, it is showing you the risk exploration period, elaboration period, focused resolution period. So in this one you can see the one thing is common from this phase, requirement phase, up to your integration, when integration starts. You can see the risk is certainly high only. During requirement phase, it is very high. So why this risk is very high when we are utilizing waterfall model? Because the thing is we are not performing testing step by step. We are not reviewing what design has been made. We are not reviewing what implementation has been performed according to modules. So that's why the risk is certainly high only up to this part. When integration starts, then most of the defects starts occurring. And at that point of time, we are controlling those defects. We are removing those defects. So that's why this risk part is going gradually down over here, this particular. And during testing phase, it is in control manner. And but when you are reaching up to this level, already you have, it can be the scenario that you have already missed out the delivering date. So this late risk resolution in practice again becomes one of the scenario which can occur. It is one of the serious issues associated with waterfall lifecycle model, that the risk profile of waterfall model looks like this. It is specifically for waterfall model. Okay. So you can utilize this diagram to explain, if you cannot remember the exploration period, risk elaboration, resolution, you need to mention these points. Just show how the graph is moved from requirement phase up to testing phase. That will be enough to explain. Another thing that you can utilize in, if the question comes up, that you have to discuss about waterfall model in practice, then you can talk about the requirements, that it is requirement driven approach. Once the requirement and is completed, the precise requirement definition you got, then you start implementation over it. That means on later stages changes in requirement is not possible, and that can create some chaos when on later stages. So that point also you can talk about. Next one is your, another point you can talk about relationship with customer, because in waterfall model the customer involvement is very less. So it can happen that the customer was expecting something within some specified period of time, but because of the internal problems, that customer is obviously not aware about what is going on inside the organization, and involvement of customer is not there. So obviously how he will get to know what is going on? So he was expecting something to be get delivered within the specified time, but he did not get it because of some of the issues. So in those cases the customer can lose their trust on organization. So that point also you can talk about in practice. You can give any example if you want to utilize. If you are very creative in these things in making content, then you can make some example on basis of this. Show some scenario where some project is being taken up. and customer involvement is very less. In between, some scenario happened in the organization within the team, lack of resources, or the later stages, the risk has occurred, the defects started occurring, because of which the date has been delayed. But customer in his mind is thinking that they will deliver it at this. So that kind of examples you can utilize. Next, in this slide, I have shown you some of the stakeholders who can be the stakeholder of the project. So, stakeholders are not only those people who are investing money into the from very start. I'm telling you this thing. Every person who is involved or is getting affected by the activities of the project is a stakeholder. It can be a sponsor, facilitator, project team, their manager, supporting staff, customers, users, suppliers, opponents of the group. They all are stakeholders. Okay. So if someone asks you in general way also that what who are stakeholders of organization, then please remember. Next. Now about this conventional management. I have shown you in last class the principles of conventional management. Today in last class itself we have seen waterfall model in theory how it works. Then in practice how it works. Graphs we have seen. So it is bit obvious that there was a requirement of improved model you can say. So that's why this iterative development you can utilize to show as modern practice. Okay. In this iterative development, what happens with every iteration? In one iteration, all the phases requirement analysis, designing, coding, testing all the phases are being performed, and then one product, functional product, is being delivered over here to the customer, on which the feedback is being taken up from the customer side. On the basis of those feedbacks, on the basis of the changes that are being tested out, the defects, the again all the phases are being, the new requirements, modified requirements are gathered up, then it goes to this part. It's being analyzed, it's being designed, it's being coded again, it's being testing out. Again, it's being delivered the next improved version of the project or the product. Or also you can say one part of the functional project is being delivered. Then it is being improved in iteration 2. Then it is being improved in iteration. In this, in how many iterations it will get complete, it depends on the size of the project. Okay, it can go up to 3 iterations, 4 iterations. If very large project is there, it can go to 8 to 10 iterations. So that is how it helped to improve the things that were not there in waterfall model. So obviously it has improved some of the things, like it has gave better opportunity to reuse the things. It has provided better quality of the project. It has provided greater predictability, and the losses became minimum. The risk started appearing very less. So, on the basis of that, this particular diagram is showing you when you are utilizing waterfall model and when you are utilizing iterative approach, how these two things have been changed. The risk in iterative approach became less. With every iteration, it is becoming less. But with waterfall model, see up to this time, it is certainly high only. And then during testing phase, it starts lower down. So these are some of the things that you can utilize to understand the conventional practices and modern practices. And in modern practices, iterative approach is not the only scenario that came as improvised model, spiral model, agile methodology. They all are part of this modern approaches and modern practices. The most utilized one right now in the scenario are agile techniques and DevOps. They are in the utilization a lot by the organization. They are using them, and they are. If you have heard these terms, Scrum methodology, extreme programming, they all are agile techniques, agile methodologies only, which organizations are now implementing, okay, and which are really, really improved versions of the life cycle. Fine. So maybe some of you are getting some of the questions in your mind related to okay, why organizations are following all these things, why they are not just stick to one thing, In real life scenario, if you will search out on Google, and if you're in future you are going to work in some organization, then you will observe these things by yourself. And in Google, if you are going to search out, you will see that this maturity framework, these CMMI models, and these life cycle models of agile based DevOps based organizations are implementing them, and they are getting benefit a lot from them. Their productivity has increased, their strength has increased, the skills of the organization has increased when they have embedded these kind of practices into the organization. Like the recent one is the organization which has become level 5 organization globally is Wipro Limited. Right? There are many organizations in 2020 which came into the list like Patti Computer Sciences and your Infosys Solutions. They came into the list of those level 5 organizations which have successfully implemented CMMI models and they reached to level 5. Okay. So these kind of examples you should know and you should search out, and you have to at least know, because these things will help you out to remember these topics very well. And if you're studying in that way, the cramming part automatically becomes more for these kind of subjects. Fine. So this was about your conventional model and some modern practices. I have told you this iterative development that you have to remember. Next one is this one, Barry Boehm's top 10 industrial software matrices, which are according to the real-time scenario that in organizations, what happens if you are not applying the um, efficient model for the development. So finding and fixing a software problem after delivery, when you have already delivered the project but you are not fixed out the problems, fixed out the defects, then it can cost you 100 times more than finding and fixing the problem in early design phase. Okay? So that, see the difference, 100 times more, it is too much. Yeah. Okay, so obviously it is better to be ready for the defects and your problematic areas on the early design phases, early coding phases. You can compress maximum 25% to the software development schedules. More than that, you can't do. So it is very much understandable matter. For every $1 you are spending on the development of the project, you will spend $2 on the maintenance. That means double of it. As much as you are spending on the development of the software, you will spend double of it on its maintenance. Reason being the changes, technology change that are coming up in the market, or the changes on the customer needs because of that. Okay, so I will not go too much into the detail of all these points. Question I don't think can come up because with time these matrices, the statistics have all obviously been changed with time. So just some of the things that you should know: the invest of the money onto the software was very less in 1955. That is, I'm talking about 6 point over here, and the ratio was software to hardware was 15 is to 8, 15 is to 85, in which the money spent on software was very less. But see, in 1985 it became exactly opposite. In this way, the transition into the software technology is quick over time, and still it is growing. And we are technologically so much advanced right now in the world that the world is continuously giving more and more latest technologies, and it is increasing, not year by year, day by day. 15%, only 15% of the software development effort is devoted to programming. So it is for those students, for those engineers who think that if you are working in some organization, it is all about programming. No, it is not. It is about designing also, it is about testing also, it is about all other phases that are part of the development of the software. The requirement analysis is very crucial part for that. Extra expertise is required. Designing, testing is separate kind of thing for which expertise is required. So if you are, any one of you is not that much interested in coding, don't think like it is not okay. It is okay. No problem at all about. You can work on yourself for designing, coding, designing, testing, and many other things are there for in software. Okay, so walk through catch 60% of the errors. That means if you are reviewing things at the correct pace consistently, then it will help you out to finding out errors more than 50%. I think that's it about this topic. Some of the terms that we have seen, some of the statistics we have seen in real life, how it happens in real time scenario, how it happens. So that is about your conventional software management. And next we have to see evolution of software economics. And this evolution of software economics also becomes one of the important part of your unit number two. Direct questions can come up, or numericals to there are very less chances to come. But okay, we will see some of the things what are required to understand this topic properly. We'll go through them. So this evolution part, when we are talking about evolution of software economics, that means we have to find and fix some. Um, sorry, we have to talk about how this software economics has evolved. And economics means you have to talk about how you are evaluating your project, on what metrics, on what measurement units you are utilizing, on the basis of which you are evaluating your complete project. Right. So that is your software economics. Some of the formulas also you will see what are they, and in this particular slide that you're watching over here, in this there are five parameters have been discussed for this. Most of the software this you have to talk about your budget estimation of the project. Okay, so you must have remembered from software engineering subject you have studied Kokomo model. Can any one of you tell me what is Kokomo model? Why we use Kokomo model? Any one of you? You can message in chat box also. But these things are very basic things you should know. Why we use Kokomo model? I don't want to know what is Kokomo model. That is a separate thing. But why we use that? Why you have studied Kokomo model in software engineering? What is the significance of Kokomo model? Okay, fine. The significance, the utilization of Kokomo model is your cost estimation of the project. You have to estimate some of the things of the project, like how much effort we have to put in the project, how much time it will take. Those things are to be evaluated. So Kokomo model is the conventional cost estimation model, the basic model which have been utilized, which have been developed to check what will be the estimated cost for the project, what will be the estimated budget, how much effort we have to put, and that we have to find out in terms of person months or staff months. So that is a unit of finding out that thing. So okay, right now I'm not going into depth of this thing, but I just wanted to know that whether you are aware about it or not. That why Kokomo model even exists. So that thing. But here, this software economics, it talks about all these things. What parameters are there to check that the estimation of the effort, estimation of the time, what are the measurement units on the basis of which the project is to be evaluated. So here in this slide, today we will see some of the theory. And in the last, in this slide, you can see I have written down one formula also. Okay. So it is effort formula only, which is related to that Kokomo model. And I will show you how it relates with that one. But first, we have to see these five parameters on the basis of which this estimation happens. The first one is the size of the group, size of the end group in human generated components, which is typically quantified in terms of number of source instructions or the number of functions required to develop the required function. So you can relate it with the size of the program. Source instructions, lines of code, and function points, which is being utilized to develop the required functionality, required program for the project. So that is the size of the end product. Second one, the process used to produce the end products, in particular, the ability of the process to avoid non-value adding activities, rework, bureaucratic delays, communications overhead. So these things, the process basically that is being utilized to avoid these things, or the ability of the how much quality process is being utilized. Next one is capabilities. Capabilities of software engineering personas. So people who are working as engineers in organizations. So their capabilities, particularly their experience with the computer science issues and the application domain issues of the project. So about those personas also. Environment, which is made up of tools and techniques available to support efficient software development and to automate the process. So on the basis of this also environment. So these are some of the factors you can say. If you have studied that COCOMO model properly, now you could have relayed this thing very efficiently. But okay, not a problem. I'll make you understand this COCOMO model also. You will see. So last one is the required quality of the product, including the features, performance, reliability, adaptability. So these again become some of the factors. In a COCOMO model, if you have seen, there are some that parts of the COCOMO model. It has been divided into certain types: organic, semi-detached, embedded projects. So in the embedded projects, this term is being utilized in COCOMO model, EAF, effort adjustment factor. So it comprises of some of the factors. If you can remember little bit of the COCOMO model, there is a list of some factors on the basis of which some values are being predefined. If that factor is at high level, low level, medium level, then what value to be utilized. So those factors only it is talking about. And here the relationship among these parameters and the estimated budget can be written as follows. The effort is being evaluated by utilizing those personal on the basis of that personal environment quality. Some values will be appended over here on the place of them, some predefined values, into size raised to the power process. So that process will also have some predefined value that in numericals most of the times it is given. So that is how these factors are affecting the complete thing, and on the basis of these factors, the complete effort is to be evaluated. So here, what you have to remember till now, I will not complicate this part. What you have to remember till now that we are talking about some of the factors on the basis of which the complete project will get evaluated. So some of the factors are these, and relationship among these factors, these parameters, can be written as follows: that total effort that will be put in the development of the project will get evaluated by utilizing this formula. The parameters of personnel, environment, quality into the power size of into size of the project raised to the power process. So for right now you remember just this one. Another thing that for theory part that we have to remember for software evolution is three generations of software development. First one is conventional. Conventional generation is of generation of 1960s, 70s craftsmanship that time, and where organizations used to use some custom tools, processes, virtually all custom components built in primitive languages. Project performance was highly predictable in that budget, schedule, quality objectives were almost always underachieved. Okay, so it was like in conventional models when the complexity was not there, new technologies were not there, things were very much clear that what you have to do. So at that time, the conventional period time came. Transition is period from 1980s, 1990s of software engineering, where organizations used more repeatable processes and off-the-shelf tools and mostly custom components built in higher level languages. Some of the components were available as commercial products, including the operating system, database management, networking, graphical user interface. So these things came into existence, because of which the requirement of skill also increased, requirement of resources also increased. So this period is called as transition period. And finally, the modern practices, which is after 2000. In this software production, it is talking about philosophies rooted in the use of managed and measured processes, integrated automation environments, mostly off-the-shelf components. Perhaps as few as 30% of the components need to be custom built technologies for environment automation, size reduction, process improvement are not independent of one another. In each new era, the key is complementary growth in all technologies. Like the process advances could not be used successfully without new component technologies and increased tool automation. That you are watching right now. We are in this era where we are utilizing modern practices, and what challenges you are facing by yourself when you are working in, when you are even studying right now. If during BTech, how the scenario of BTech also changed. Earlier, for BTech final year projects, management projects were enough to develop. But right now, they want some based on some latest technology, some research based projects are required. So, with this thing only, you can say in school education also the change has come. Earlier, there was a time when students used to study computer or IT, the subject in their 10th class, 11th class. Before that, there was not an option of IT. Okay, but now from sixth class onwards, fifth class onwards, students are studying computers. Yes, so this is called as a transition and the modern era that is going on right now, where people are really smart and the tools are really smart. Artificial intelligence is going on. So that three generations you have to remember, and remember the duration time that is written over here: 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and then 2000 onwards. This particular thing is showing the there are some graphs. The upper one is according to the software size and the budget, and the target objectives improved ROI, return on investment. Return on investment is nothing but the benefit when it is being divided. First, I will tell you this one only. What's ROI? ROI is return on investment, and return on investment is basically it is a performance measure which is being utilized to evaluate the efficiency of an investment and to compare the efficiency of number of different investments. The benefit of the investment is divided by the cost of the investment, the initial cost that is being. So on the basis of that return on investment, how much you got, the result is expressed. So this formula I have just shown. No need to cram it. I'm not saying any numericals will come up on this, but you should know. So this one is showing the actually you can relate this thing in this diagram. Now this part, this complete part is of conventional generation. This part is of 1980-90s. Complete is of transition generation, and this 2000 and onwards is of their modern practices. Okay, so upper one is showing that graph that ROI, the software ROI is being improvised within the modern practices have been came into existence. Okay, so that is the significance of this first diagram that is shown over here. In this one, it is shown as in what were different models and the practices that were being followed in conventional transition and modern practices. So you can utilize all these things. If the question comes up, you have to differentiate. Separate question. Okay, only difference can come up, or they can ask you separately what are the modern practices. Okay. So in 1960-17, waterfall model, functional design, diseconomy of scale. These were some of the practices that are being utilized. Process improvement, encapsulation based, this economy of scale. And last one is your modern practices, iterative development, component based return on investment. These were some of the things that happened gradually with time. Mhm. And next one is about your the tools. Tools were in conventional practices, tools were custom based tools. Off the shelf in transition, separate tools, off the shelf tools, environment. One person is working on one thing, things are separate, then you have to integrate them. And in modern practices, graphical user interfaces, more developed tools came into existence. That's why integrated tools are being used. Size in conventional 100% custom, that means being decided by the people. Transition 30% component based, 70% custom. And here modern practices 70% it is component and 30% you can make variations custom. In conventional process was very much immature, that's why it is being said as ad hoc. Transition it is repeatable. Repeatable means again you have crises are happening, failures are happening, and you have to repeat. That's why it is repeatable. You can relate it with your repeatable phase that we have discussed in maturity framework. And in your modern practices it is managed and measured. So I don't think I should go more further than this. It will complicate the understanding of certain things. Up to this point, you have to know return on investment, this graph, how the budget and the according to the size of the things, the return of investment has been increased, people getting benefits, the software developments, and this transition has came from conventional to modern practices. That you have to remember what were the tools being utilized in conventional transition modern practices. Processes were immature, it became repeatable, and then it became managed and measured. And typical project performance is predictably bad in conventional models. In transitions, it was unpredictable, depends on the budget schedule, and in modern practices, it is most of the times it is predictable. So that's it